So how did the GIA Project get started? Well, the truth is it started with the Tropical Conservation and Development Program, which is here in the Center for Latin American Studies at the University of Florida. And the Tropical Conservation and Development Program actually goes back decades, more than 4 decades, of working in the Amazon with partners to address issues related to conservation and development, to protected areas, to the use of natural resources, to the governance of those resources and those lands. And the TCD program at the University of Florida is really incredibly diverse. We're a community. We're a learning community. We're faculty, we're students, we're alumni, and we're partners working together. We come from across a variety of different disciplines. What brings us together is this shared interest in improving the outcomes in the Amazon for both conservation and the people that live in the Amazon. And we recognize that there's been tremendous progress that has happened over the years in conserving areas in the Amazon through protected areas, indigenous reserves, while at the same time there's a tremendous amount of threats that are facing the region today, including climate change, infrastructure development, and other factors. And so that's what got us together with the Andes Amazon Initiative at the Gordon and Betty Moore Foundation to develop the GIA Project. So we're working in 4 different regions. We're working in the Colombian Amazon, the Loreto region of Peru, the Upper Madeira River Basin of Bolivia and Brazil, and Southwest Amazonas and Northern Rondônia in Brazil. And we're addressing basically 4 different questions. The questions are, what tools and strategies are being used to translate knowledge and information into governance impact? Second, what factors enable and limit effective governance, and how do these affect the impacts of tools and strategies? Third, what's working, what's not working, and what lessons can be learned? And fourth, how can we strengthen and improve the use of tools and strategies?
So in this first year, we started by opening dialogue with different kinds of organizations that are interacting with infrastructure and conservation of mosaics of protected areas and indigenous lands in these 4 different regions of the Amazon. Organizations such as governments, NGOs, community leaders, and we started asking them, like, what kind of work are they doing? What are the threats that they're facing? And eventually we formed them into groups that are interested in having discussions, learning together, sharing experiences. And we had a workshop in each of these 4 regions where these actors started to have a more in-depth discussion about these 4 questions. And we learned that these organizations are using a wide range of strategies, that many of the strategies are quite relevant to infrastructure, that the impacts are still a challenge to achieve in terms of either stopping or mitigating the impacts of infrastructure. But we also learned that the strategies that include political action, communications, policy approaches, legal actions were having or associated with projects that had the biggest impact on stopping and mitigating infrastructure. We also learned that grassroots organizations, whether indigenous or community organizations, are also involved in a lot of the projects that had the biggest impact on infrastructure. And so as we go forward, we want to understand better how these different actions related to communications, political mobilization, negotiations, policy, legal actions are working together, how indigenous or grassroots organizations can be supported and collaborate with different kinds of organizations, such as NGOs and government agencies, how other kinds of conservation actions, such as capacity building and research and monitoring, can support the ones that are most directly associated with impact. And so in this second year of the project, we're carrying out research on these topics. We're continuing to support organizations to implement these strategies in ways that we can learn from them and that they can learn from each other. And we're documenting what's being learned and trying to include this experience in further discussions with these organizations and ultimately achieve that goal that you mentioned of improving the practice of these organizations to have greater impact on the governance related to infrastructure and the conservation and social outcomes.